Cheryl,
hey,
you're very welcome. It's really an honor to have you here. It really is. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I was listening to you earlier today, and I really think that you are a world-class player. People need to know you. You have so many incredible attributes to your playing. The at the top of that pyramid is that you're incredibly musical. For those viewers who don't know your music, now this is going to be a tough one. How would you describe your direction in jazz?
well, that is an easy question because I primarily record and perform my own music. I mean, when I'm not a side person. So it is Cheryl Bailey music. It's my view of the world. They're my melodies and my harmonies. So, and you know, funny thing, I did a cool little interview on Instagram Live yesterday with somebody, and they were asking me about, you know, how do you find your own voice? And for me, that was really the key in finding my own voice on the guitar, was writing and performing my own music. So I started out, I had a lot of people that inspired me to do that. Dwayne Burno was an amazing bass player in New York who passed away. He was a brilliant musician, and I worked in his band when I first moved to New York, and the guy was writing all the time. I'd feel like I just learned the last book, literally book of music, and I'd come to the gig and there'd be another book. And so that just, and I loved his writing style. And also my friend who's in Kansas City, Matt Otto, is a tenor player. Same thing, the guy, every time, and I worked with him a lot, he always had new music, and I loved this style. I mean, and knowing both of those people, their personality came through their music. And so it really inspired me to write and perform my own music. So that's what I feel. I mean, I have tons of influences, and of course, I'm a side person, and when I'm in that role, my goal is to really make the person who hired me happy, so they call me again back for the gig. But in terms of my own music, it's really just how I hear things, really. I mean, really, it's always, well, how someone plays is really how they hear things. So that's how I hear it.
Okay, so before you started writing, what was your focus as a jazz guitarist?
Well, I think, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I really, when I was a teenager, I loved Wes Montgomery, and I could play all those solos with the octaves and everything. And then I got into Pat Martino when I went to Berklee, and I got into Grant Green a little, when I was in New York. So, and I felt like, I think this is why I started to write, because I felt like maybe I had to recreate them in some way, maybe in some way to prove myself, or and I understand the value of that with my students. I'm like, at some point you have to emulate somebody on the instrument. It's sort of a rite of passage, and it's really how you learn to play your instrument. But there was only one Wes, and there was only one Pat Martino, and one, like, you can't recreate that. And I think it was futile. So I felt like I was trying to measure myself up to obvious greatness, and I couldn't fit in there, and it was frustrating. And so I just decided to make my own music. But of course, how I play the guitar, how I approach the guitar is deeply influenced by them, because that's who I studied and imitated. And, so I do believe that's an important process when you're learning an instrument at some time, to really emulate someone that you love,
Right.
And then, and then you move on, I guess, after a while.
Yeah, exactly. My friend Scott Henderson, who I'm sure you know, in a conversation that we had, he was telling me, I just had like a thought of, like, we used to joke, about friends of mine who moved to New York, and they would have these conversations, and they would say the object was to kind of show that you had some kind of importance, so they would name drop. Yeah, so I was talking with Scott Henderson, and he was telling me Wayne Shorter was talking to Alan Holdsworth. So I just felt like, oh my God, am I doing that? So I was talking to Scott Henderson, who happens to be a friend of mine, and name dropping, and he said, this is a paraphrase, I'm paraphrasing him because it was a while ago. He said, listen, the arbiter to a guitar player that is a real guitar player is someone who can write. If you can't write, you're not a full-fledged musician.
That's interesting.
And I'm sure if he's watching this, he'd probably, I never said that. Yeah. And it's very interesting to hear people who have really focused on their writing. It's very different from a player who is really focused on their playing and has everything together, even at a virtuosic level. And then you hear their writing, and it's, they never have really focused on the writing. I think that through writing, and through writing many, many, many tunes, you do find your own voice. You do start to focus in on what it is that you're hearing. And I think it does make you a lot, a lot more robust of a musician than just maybe a side person in terms of being an artist.
Yeah. Well, I feel that, I would say, like, I'm the boss of it. I wrote it. So I have an idea of what I want it to sound. As opposed to if I'm playing a Wes Montgomery tune or something, I want to pay reverence to him or something. And I feel that's a lot of pressure. But on that note, who was a great, Wes wrote a lot of great tunes. Pat Martino was a great composer. And I think as great as he was on the guitar, and he doesn't get credit for it, but I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
He influenced me. I transcribed a lot of his music, his tunes, and I would transcribe his tunes because I wanted to play them. And in doing that, I learned a lot about writing also from transcribing a lot of his music.
When you moved to New York, about how old were you approximately when you moved there?
I came to New York a little later. I was I'm 28 years old, I want to say. A little older. It was a little harder being a little older because, I always say, they say New York is the big pond. And so I had been in Baltimore, D.C. area, and I had been pretty successful there, and I was a big fish in a small pond, so to speak. And then you have to go to the big pond. It'd be hard, if you got a certain thing and a certain lifestyle, and you're starting all over and sleeping on a couch and all of that. But it was what I had to do. I needed to do it for many, many reasons. And so, that's what I did. It was great. It was good too because I had a sense of, myself too. I wasn't just a kid going there. So I guess
right.
No, I'm not saying that I regret that, but that's how it was.
And how difficult was it for you to break in, so to speak?
It was pretty easy, actually, in a lot of ways. What I did? I went and I've met guitar players, and I got a little gig, and I called everybody to play on my gig, and I got to meet all the guitar players. Because who's going to call you to sub for you? This person on your same instrument. So that was sort of how. So I started gigging. I started going up on the weekends, and then I'd be staying longer and longer till then I was there. And then I worked at the time. They call them club dates in New York, which are wedding bands and bar mitzvahs. And I hooked up with a band. I was working a lot. I was making a lot of money doing that. And so that was great. I it kind of happened.
So you didn't have to be a barista?
No, I never did. I've never had a day gig. I had one day gig right when I graduated Berklee for maybe 6 months. But I mean, I've just been a guitarist and professional.
Wow, fantastic.
All that. So fantastic. I don't know, it happened. Well, it didn't just happen. I mean, I had a strategy like that. Like, well, I want to meet all the guitar players and get a gig. And then, people were like, hey, I'm at a new guitar, whatever. Can you sub for me? And then you just people get to know you. So.
Were any of the gigs really rough, like very difficult? In other words, people think, oh, I'm going to New York. I'm in the big leagues now. What am I going to do? Was it like that for you? Did you find like, wow, this is really a lot heavier than what I experienced back in Baltimore? Or
well, in a good way. I mean, I guess that's why you go there, right? I mean, I mentioned Dwayne Burno. I mean, that band was ridiculous with Joe Farnsworth and Myron Walden. And Renato Kiko played on that gig, and Dwayne on bass. I mean, playing with Joe Farnsworth, that is why you moved to New York, to play with those guys. And they're lit a fire up underneath. And, I'd be playing at Smalls. The other thing, too, about New York is, my friend Anthony Pinciotti says, being in New York keeps your knives sharpened.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd be playing at Smalls, and everybody was there, and George Benson would walk in, or Harold Mayburn, or or Larry Goldings, or would walk in the club. So it brings you to that level, but that's why you go there, because you want. I mean, first of all, you should always be giving 100%, whether you're playing at a pet store or Carnegie Hall. Always, like that's what it is. But then, when you're playing with those people on the bandstand and you're playing music that is really challenging, that's why you're there,
Yeah, I never heard anybody say play at a pet store. Would that be in the iguana section?
Yeah. I mean, I've done so many crazy gigs, and your career is like that. Like one day you're playing in the iguana section, and then the next day you're on tour. And then the next day, you're playing a bar mitzvah, or, it's all, but you're doing it always at the highest of integrity.
And how much were you practicing at that point versus how much you're practicing now?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, I am always a practicer. I love practicing. And when I was a kid, I practiced easily 8 hours a day. When I was a teenager, I love it. And if I could, I would now. But, I think that is always fluctuating. And I'm actually really interested in this topic because I'm putting together a course here for Berklee on how to practice. So I'm always asking people and interviewing. I'm kind of in the research stages of it because myself, I love to practice. So I guess to say about in New York, I had also a drum kit. I recommend get a drum kit, and then you can always have drummers over for sessions. So there was my own personal practicing, but then there was just having sessions and playing, and getting a group together of people that we would practice together and play together, and I mean, that's really important, particularly with improvised music. It's one thing to work on stuff on your instrument, but the art form of improvising together is another thing, and you need to practice that too. So I had a lot of time. Like, we would have 4-hour sessions together, and then, I might practice even, more, but then you might have a gig too, so you're playing all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, so I have a question that's going to be a little bit loaded because it has everything to do with students. A majority of jazz guitar students wanting to go straight for the modern stuff. And I mean, I love the modern stuff, but my question to you is somebody who has taught a lot and has done the New York thing. What are your thoughts about modern jazz guitar and students' desire to go like straight towards it?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's only 12 tones. So the same 12 tones that you and I have are the same 12 tones that Chick Corea had, and that any modern player or any ancient player has. 12 tones, right? So,
right.
I mean, I think it's great, whatever gets people into playing. But the fact of it is that there's actually, well, let's see the thing. If someone gets into this on a superficial level, like they learn a couple Kurt Rosenwinkel solos and they've got that kind of chops, that's great. But that's a really kind of only goes so far in terms of depth, right? Because the true in terms of thinking, there's only 12 tones. There is a line that goes from, Louis Armstrong, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, John. There is a core that goes through all of that. And one of the main things is playing the changes. So if you're playing on Autumn Leaves or you're playing on All the Things You Are, you still have to play the changes. And Kurt Rosenwinkel still plays the changes. The main thing that changes from era to era are the intervallic considerations and also articulation, right? Like the way George Garzone plays, he's really taken away a lot of that hard articulation, but he can do that. I mean, he's a master of the saxophone, so he could play in that. So that is more stylistic to, for instance, bebop or post-bop is the articulation. So to me, the only difference, there's really no difference harmonically or what the harmonic structures are. It's more about the intervallic placement and the articulation. Also, people are playing in odd meters or stuff like that. So that might be a new innovation, but it's still a straight line. But the only reason that I know that is because I took that line back and moved it forward. Because I mean, I could be accused of the same thing. When I was a Berklee student, Ralph Towner is really they were modern, and John Abercrombie, Mick Goodrick, and Mike Stern. Those were all the people that I just ate up and devoured. And actually then I was really playing out of that, and that was modern, right?
Yeah.
But I went to New York and I actually reverse engineered it. And then you know what that did? That made everything stronger. So that's what I'm saying is like, I encourage folks, young folks, whatever, that if that's the doorway in, that's the gateway in, eventually they're going to have to see where things come from. So Kurt Rosenwinkel didn't hatch out of an egg.
Right.
He might say that he did, and that's cool. That's showbiz. But the facts of it is he did his homework, and you can hear his early recordings, the homework he did. So
absolutely,
that's what I was just saying. Nothing comes from nothing. Alan Holdsworth did not hatch out of an egg either, and that he was into Coltrane. Well, Coltrane was into Dexter Gordon, and they were all into Lester Young. So, right. And the deeper that you really have done that kind of listening, so a lot of young people just haven't really done that listening either. No, I'm sure there are a lot that have. I don't want to make that, but I think as you go and you really listen, you can hear that thread that ties it all together. It goes this way and it goes that way. So
I was telling my friend that if you were a guest on Kurt Rosenwinkel's gig, you would sound great. I mean, you yeah, period. Or were you imagining it? You're like, yeah, I could be on Kurt Rosenwinkel's gig.
Yeah, and I'd sound
I could just
great.
see myself. Oh, wait a second. Yeah. I seriously do think that your playing is, you left out something actually. Time.
Oh,
like
everything.
Yes, and you have great time.
Thank you.
You have great time.
I've worked really hard on that. Thanks.
And I'm sure that New York did a very fine job of kicking your butt when it comes to that, because that does not survive in that city. It doesn't survive anywhere, but for sure, like you said, one of the things that a sharp knife would cut is you out of the gig if your time sucked.
That's true. That is
Right?
that is the absolute truth.
So that leads me to this question. I'm sure you have seen either on YouTube or Instagram the now plethora, however you want to pronounce it, of virtuosic players. It's incredible. It's like, I thought the golden age was in the late 80s when all of the, you know, we were inundated with the REH and video publications with all the, explaining all the tricks and everything. But that may have been the golden age of guitar tutorials. Now we're in like the platinum age or something, like where there are no secrets anymore, and everybody, it seems like it's a shower of virtuosos. How do we reckon ourselves, those of us who can play fast but are not like virtuosic? Like, help! What do we do, Cheryl?
I guess if you value that, I don't know. I don't really value that per se as being a marker of being a great player or musician, speed in itself. I mean, and when you develop the ability to play fast, it becomes almost more like a parlor trick. I mean, and I say that at being someone who really worked hard at being able to play tempos and stuff. Mm-hmm. But now that I can do it, it's sort of, I don't want to do it all the time because it's not that interesting if I did it all the time.
How do you keep that skill up?
I practice every day.
But do you are you working with the click? Are you trying to like up it, see if you can play Cherokee at 270, that kind of thing?
I always, well, first of all, I'm a metronome fanatic, but here's what you have to understand about, well, first about time. They're all connected, time and like I'm in terms of virtuosic type of speed playing, I guess, because that's not all, that doesn't all define virtuosity, but they all link into relaxation, number one, right? Anyone that you ever saw that can really rip is very relaxed. So that's because sometimes I get emails from people going, oh, will you show me this? And I'm like, it doesn't, like picking style. It's like, if you're not relaxed, nothing, it doesn't matter. So that's the number one thing. So also the other element of it ties into rhythm and time and relaxation. So time or rhythm is the physical element of music. Right? That's what makes you want to dance, right? Dancers dance to the rhythm, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first step, is you have to learn how to feel the time and dance with it. Because if you dance with the time, then you're having fun and you're not tense. So every beat on the metronome is a physical space. So you need to learn about how you move in that space, right? Mm-hmm. Because again, rhythm and time are the physical elements of music. So once you start to learn that in your body and you relax and you connect with your body, I mean, one example is with students sometimes, if they're having really all over the place, get a ball and bounce it to the metronome. Then the physical space it takes. It's either a big space or it's short space.
God, I know somebody who needs that. I'm getting a ball. Like, seriously, I've not tried that before. That is a new one. And I've tried a lot of things after teaching for 30 plus years.
Yes, oftentimes I have folks work with a metronome. I call it the pocket tai chi. So if you can find the physical, then I could say, well, could I show you?
Yeah.
Okay. So every tempo has a literal physical correlation. So if I said this was, that's 90. So we could either feel that as a quarter note. I want to feel it as 2 and 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I say the top of my circle is here. Two,
Yep.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So now that's okay. Maybe there's a one I could double that up. It might be a little more relaxing. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So let me try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's way more relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I play with that tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what I call it, the pocket tai chi. You see the old folks out in the park doing the tai chi. They're moving like that. So if I can do that, then I could say that tempo of 90 as a half note is this big, 2, 3, 4, 1, or it's this big, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's that big in physical space. So that's how I want to. If I'm going to practice that tempo, whether I'm practicing technical things or I'm working on a tune, I want to take a moment and feel that, and find the circle, because there'll always be different levels. There could be a smaller circle too. I want to find the one that's the most relaxing, and I can breathe into it. And once I can breathe, I'm relaxed.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
So
beautiful.
So that's how you'll break through speed, because there's a number on that metronome that's a barrier. Everyone has it. I have, and even it keeps going. Which means, so that's the relaxation threshold. So it doesn't mean that you can't play that fast or faster. It means you're not relaxed there, and it doesn't count unless you're totally relaxed. Because when you're really relaxed, you'll be able to phrase, not just play shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but
please swear.
Okay.
Let's get real, woman.
Not just
Let's get real.
hanging by a thread, like that. Yeah. Like where you're really in the middle of the beat and you're relaxed and you can phrase. That's when it's fun. Yeah. It's not fun until you get there.
Right when you talked about relaxation, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just finished interviewing a guy named Aubrey King, who's a virtuosic bluegrass guitarist. I mean, incredible. And he says that he absolutely focuses on playing really, really relaxed. And it's because he plays relaxed, he plays from the wrist, relaxed, and he's able to just, kill it. It's an obvious thing, but I'm hearing it across genres, whether it be somebody who's metal player, who's an economy picker, or George Benson's student that he had for 15 years, Peter Farrell, to this bluegrass player, to yourself. It's nice to see the same kind of signposts across genres. I think they're really important to look at. Yeah.
Definitely. That's the unifying principle of great technique, is relaxation. And actually, the great thing about YouTube, if you can't go see people live, one person I love to go to see live at least once a year is Mike Stern down at the 55 bar, and watch him, because he has this thing, he does a funny thing with his legs, but it's sort of like the pressure cooker, so that his whole upper body is relaxed, and he's so relaxed, and he can just burn. And I think about him a lot when I practice, like just that sense of relaxation. Because you're not going to be able to burn if you're tense. But I was going to say about YouTube, if you can't go see people live, maybe watch something that you've seen a lot on YouTube and turn the sound down. Watch Chick Corea with the sound down, and you'll see like just flowing, beautiful movement. Or Vladimir Horowitz, or Jimi Hendrix, or Yngwie Malmsteen, whoever. Yeah, doesn't matter the genre. You'll just see that fluid relaxation in their body. That's how they do it. That's the secret, y'all. We just got the secret. Tell your friends, tune in. They had to watch the whole segment up to there to get that.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this, Cheryl. What kind of advice would you give to people who are just making their first forays into improvised music? They love guitar, they love jazz. Maybe they can whip out 1, 2, 5, 1 lick. Where do they go from there? What do they do?
Yeah, well, find a good teacher to learn about harmony and your instrument. and play with others. Try to get enough skills together that you can play with others right away. Because just as you were asking about practicing when I was in New York, there is the practice on your instrument, but in improvising, you have to practice it with others, and that entails with others. So try to get enough skills that you can jam with others, because you'll learn once you are in that up to that place where you can jam with others, whether it's working on your rhythm guitar, number one for guitar players, then you can get in the game. You can only get good at the game if you can play the game.
Yes, that's so true. And we're back to the Instagram thing, where so many people have become virtuosic inside their bedroom, and they've really never played with a band much. So we're in this kind of now, this insular sort of thing where I could become a great player, maybe not even ever play with the band, and then put out YouTube videos of me playing over a Dorian track.
I guess so, if that makes you happy. I guess that's an awesome thing to do. I mean, I personally love to play for people, living, breathing people. And, you know, I think the pandemic has made us all kind of hermits in that way, but it's opening up. You know, it's coming back, and to me that it's way more fun to play for people and with people and for people.
Are you like actively working on recording and making records?
Well, you know, I haven't. Yeah, I just recorded something with a new quartet in January.
Oh, fantastic!
I mean, I have a bunch of recordings out and stuff. But I was been sort of at a loss what to do, you know, now that CDs are over. And so anyway, we did just record the quartet's called the SBQ. And so anyway, hopefully that'll be out soon.
Great.
Later this year and you know, I still keep my trio going in New York, and but yeah, I was excited to record the quartet. It's with some music that there was one new tune, and it was just good to document some of that music.
Are you teaching lessons yourself?
Well, I took on this job to be the assistant chair of the guitar department at Berklee College of Music. So that's a full-time gig. I teach 2 classes. I teach a harmony class here and a bebop guitar class. I don't really teach too. I have TruFire is probably the best way they can study with me.
Oh, great.
I mean, I have an artist channel there, and it's a lot of stuff. And I mean, I have a bunch of courses through that, but you can take private lessons with me via TruFire more than anything. I have an artist channel there which you can subscribe to. There's a free level, and there's tons of free stuff, and then there are different levels, and then you can also take private lesson there too. But I mean, there's tons of stuff in my I mean, I might have almost 400 lesson videos in there.
Wow.
And I'm still producing them all the time. So
great. So there's new content all the time.
Yeah, there's always new content. So
fantastic.
Come over there.
Fantastic.
There's there's plenty of stuff to keep you busy. Keep you off the streets if you come over there.
Well, Cheryl, I mean, it's been great talking with you. I'm sure, like, I'm actually having to force myself to stop because I know I would continue on for another 2 hours. But I really appreciate you spending the time with me. And wow, guys, check out her music. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was really great to finally see you. At least we're not in 3D yet, but hopefully we'll make that happen.
Yes, I'd love to come to Boston sometime. Definitely. We have a couple pints for sure.
All right, for sure.
Okay, take care of yourself.
Bye.